It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, it's great to see you because I get to hear Brandon Rossai's voice on this episode, bringing us in, which is always great. Not that I don't always just love the fact that you're on the pod with me, but when you're not here, I really miss not hearing Brandon Rossai's voice. So
yeah, I don't want to ask you whether you like me being here more or less than you just like hearing Brandon Rossai's voice, because I think I know the answer and I don't like it. So I'm not going to ask.
All I'll say is I'm glad I'm not Pinocchio. That's what I'll say. Plead the fifth. No, but you're in Indy covering the NFL Combine, as I alluded to yesterday when Aaron was on here, the reason for that being the case. Omar Khan speaking today. We're going to dive into a little bit of that, but you covered quite a bit, at least some bullet points on this morning's Morning Rush, so be sure to go check that out for anybody that hasn't had the opportunity to. But there's some stuff within there that maybe you did cover, but I would like to give my opinion on. But honestly, the one thing that I wasn't necessarily expecting to come out of his mouth, and we even got a comment specifically about this, which is where I want to start, is Broderick Jones. And Omar basically saying, yeah, he's going to be the left tackle in 2025, which I think is interesting because I would have thought, especially at like this juncture, kind of leave it open to interpretation or like not give you much in terms of that and just say, yeah, like, between him and Troy or whatever, we'll even like leave the door open for Dan Moore to come back potentially, even though we knew that wouldn't happen. Like, I'm surprised that didn't happen. Were you surprised that he just flat out said that Broderick Jones would be the left tackle? And what do you make of that?
I'm both surprised that he flat out said it and surprised that that's what they're doing. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to go this year. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to move him back to left tackle after he's played 2 seasons of right tackle. Just finally started to play some good right tackle the second half of the season. But I thought that Troy Fautanu was the better of the two. He's certainly the better pass protector of the two. Right. And that's why I want to put the better pass protector on the left side. I just, I don't know. I don't get it, really.
Yeah, I think, like, not stylistically, not saying that Troy couldn't also play on the right side, but when I look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the players, to me, it just seems like a smoother transition. Like having those guys, Broderick on the right side, Troy on the left side, makes more sense. Is there some? I know that we've talked about this. Obviously, like Troy was able to check the boxes to play tackles in terms of like the measurements and stuff like that. Could that be potentially a reason that they wouldn't want him to play on the left side? I mean, I'm just trying to think of a reasoning here that they would be trying to I'm not saying pigeonhole Troy onto the right side, but not even like having him compete at that spot.
I mean, I guess the idea would be like Broderick has the higher upside of the two players. I think like his athleticism is just off the charts. Like, there's nothing really keeping Broderick from being the best tackle in football except for Broderick. Like, athletically, he has everything that you would need to have to be that. I'm not sure Troy does. He's a little smaller. He's not as explosive of an athlete. And so maybe you just want the higher upside. You're hoping for the higher upside. But, man, I just think over the last 2 seasons, we've seen enough out of Broderick Jones to have a feeling that like super high upside, I don't want to say it's not going to happen, but it doesn't feel likely right now, does it? Like, I mean, this is a guy who was like barely a passable starter at the beginning of the season. What we're talking about his upside now, I don't know. It doesn't quite jive for me.
Yeah, I'm not viewing like Broderick is certainly not on like that Tristan Wirfs path where like we saw him transition from right tackle to left tackle after playing at a very high level on the right side, and then their left tackle obviously moves on. They transition him over, and he's continued to be a great player. Like, I'm not viewing this the same way as that. When I look at Broderick, like you said, I thought that he came along towards the end of last season, basically from the bye week on. I thought the two tackles kind of flipped in terms of the quality of play that you were getting from them, but like, super good athlete, obviously, but to me, like the trump card for him is the run blocking aspect. And like when I look at like the way that the Steelers have kind of put this offensive line together and just in general, like to me, that screams right tackle. And I know a lot of people are thinking like he's got to play left tackle to be able to return the investment of the 14th overall pick and trading up to do it or whatever. I'm not viewing it that way. And especially like 3 years down the line, even if it were the case where I feel like maybe you're, and I'm not viewing it this way anyway, where you're losing some value if he ends up playing on the right side, like, if he's better on that side and Troy's better on the left side, I feel like you just kind of got to bite that bullet. But again, that's not even necessarily how I view it. I just see a lot of people on Twitter saying that he's got to play left tackle because of where they took him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I see a lot of people saying is like, oh, he's going to be better at left tackle. Like he's going to because he played left tackle like. This is just the dumbest thing that I hear people say on a regular basis. It's his natural position. He's played more games at right tackle now than he has at left tackle because he didn't hardly play at all in college. And so, no, there's no – left tackle is harder, and he was struggling with the easier assignment. He's not going to be better at left tackle. It's not how it works.
No, I guess the thing for me, though, is if they're making this statement right now, in February and giving him from this point on to know that he's going to be the left tackle, that gives him, quite a bit of path here to be able to hopefully just own in on that. I mean, do they still want him to work some at right, do you think? Or what is it going to strictly be left tackle based off this statement?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. He's been, he was the backup last year. If something happened to Dan Moore, he would have gone and played left tackle probably for any length of time. I know Calvin Anderson got one snap or something like that, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the plan there is. Well, also part of that might depend on if there's a backup and who the backup is and what position the backup is capable of playing or comfortable playing. That's all a matter there too. So I don't know.
Yeah. And, I wanted to touch on that too, just kind of tying this in terms of could there be a splash coming on the offensive line as well? I know that, you put we did our ideal off seasons on Friday. You gave them Mekhi Becton. I gave him Patrick McCarry, which I would say is a little bit of a step down, but obviously offers the flexibility as well, guard tackle flexibility. Talked about Mason McCormick, Omar Khan did in a pretty high light. Why wouldn't he? He's not going to degrade a player or anything like that, but especially for a 4th round pick, I think that we've both, said that he exceeded expectations certainly in year one. But, you think about the future potentially of Isaac Seumalo as well. I've mentioned what if things don't continue to improve for Broderick Jones? What if Troy Fautanu's injuries, persist and stuff like that? And I think the offensive line should probably be talking about a bit more. And, and then not saying that he's some insider or anything like that, but I did think it was interesting. Brian Baldinger talking about there could be a significant splash by the team in free agency along the offensive line. So what do we make of that? Is Omar saying so, speaking so glowingly about Mason McCormick? Can we kind of put that in that same bucket where it's actions speak louder than words? We'll see if they do upgrade upon him.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking that guard was a sneaky place for this team to be active in free agency. I think it makes a lot of sense. You sign a guy to a 2 or 3 year deal. Let him start this year next to Seumalo, then let Mason McCormick get back into the starting lineup next year. I think that's a more natural progression for McCormick than just keeping the starter. I think I don't want to Mason, I think a lot of people think that Mason McCormick was better than he was this year. He was fine. He was way better than I expected, but I would not necessarily call him an above average starting guard this year. Would you? I thought he was just okay. Nope. Right. He was just okay. Right. And so I think some people have in their head that just because he was a rookie and he played that he should just keep playing. And that's the way it is. And I think that's an area where they could make an upgrade. They could let Mason McCormick continue to develop. Maybe have him replace Seumalo next year, a year older and a year wiser. I don't know. I think the real question is, what do you want this offensive line to be? Are you okay with the offensive line growing together? Because then you can just draft another guy. You just draft another guy, and then that guy sits behind Seumalo this year. He replaces Seumalo, and next year, this time, you have 5 offensive linemen all under the age of 25. You could certainly do that.
Yeah.
But like that 5 offensive linemen all under the age of 25 are probably not going to be very good. Like you need veterans to be good on the offense. Offensive linemen take a long time to develop. And so do you want to be good this year? Do you want on the offensive line? Do you want to be good next year on the offensive line? If so, you're probably going to need a veteran in that spot. And if you're going to need a veteran in that spot, I think it makes sense to sign one right now. So I don't know. I'm with Baldy. I think this is a place where they should be looking to add, could be looking to add. But Omar certainly did not give any indication that that's the case when I asked him about it today.
Well, that's where I wanted to that's why I incorporated that. Like in terms of having to sift through things that are said at this time of year. I mean, you go back, you posted the screenshot, obviously this time last year where they had full faith in Kenny Pickett. You know, how do you, as somebody that is within that realm, obviously, and is part of these scrums and stuff like that, sift through what you believe to be real or fake, or do you just kind of have to let it play out to realize what it is?
I mean, you kind of have to let it play out. Like you can read the tea leaves, right? Like you can kind of call their bluff sometimes, but sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes you just got to go with it. Now, if we get to Saturday when the offensive linemen talk and the Steelers are meeting with all the top guards, then yeah, okay, maybe there's something that then maybe I'm going to call BS. But until I got some data, some information, I don't know. It's just speculation. I don't like to speculate. I mean, yeah, we should acknowledge the possibility that everything every general manager says is a lie. And certainly Omar in his short time as GM has been perhaps less forthcoming than most. Let's just say that. So yeah, I mean, we got to take that into account. But and to be fair, he didn't even specifically say, yes, we're giving Mason McCormick the job. He just didn't answer the question directly while glowingly demonstrating McCormick's abilities. So yeah, certainly anything's possible.
Yeah, I just wanted to put those two together. Obviously, you could say the same thing about talking about the quarterbacks or the way that he talked about his exit interview with George and stuff like that, and wanted to continue that going into the future.
That's good. I want to bring that up too. Is like,
yeah,
you talked about the exit interview with George, and then I got people messaging me like, Omar said that they want a contract with George. Like, no, that's actually not what Omar said. Omar, he said, I had a really solid exit meeting with GP, and I can tell you that he has a desire to be great. He has a desire to be great here, and we have a desire for him to be great and to be here. With respect to the contract, we won't discuss that publicly, and usually those things are addressed at a later date. Nowhere did he say we want to sign George Pickens to a contract extension. He said he wants him to be here, but that's it. And so,
well, and also to kind of go along, I believe I was kind of going through your timeline here when talking about TJ, he said he was hopeful and confident about an extension there. So he could have said the same thing in regards to George, right?
He said when he talked about Jaylen Warren, he said, and I don't remember, I don't have the exact quote there in front of me, but something along the same lines. It's like, I'm pretty sure that we're going to tag him. Like, so yeah, you're getting the two, that's a yes. That's a, I don't know. It's not a no, but it's not a yes, like that. You kind of have to decipher the GM speak.
If we could talk about the quarterback stuff you want to, I know that was mainly what you covered on this morning rush. I want people to go and watch that for that. I'm more so curious about like the way that he was marrying the wide receiver position to that in free agency and what your take on that is as well. Cause it was like, we want to sign one of our guys, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson before we get to free agency. And then that could also determine the type of receiver that we're looking for as well. And somebody DM me asking like what I thought that meant and who falls into like each bucket. Like if it is Russell Wilson, what receivers are we talking about? As opposed to if it's Justin Fields, what receivers are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think there's a lot there. I think the way that you want to look at this is there's a lot of players that are possible for the Steelers. They need to know like what they're spending at quarterback. Okay. Then they need to know who the guy is and what that's going to mean about their offensive priorities. And then how do they want to allocate the rest of their assets that they have left after quarterback to wide receiver compared to the other needs. Okay. So like, let's say that things fall apart with Fields, things fall apart with Russ, and they're going to sign Aaron Rodgers. Okay. And they're going to sign Aaron Rodgers. So, okay, now they're like, oh crap, we got to really invest in wide receiver. Aaron Rodgers, we're going to throw the ball 45 times a game. We got to have way more. We got like, now wide receiver is like his huge priority over everything else. But if it's Justin Fields and he's coming back, and it's like, well, they're probably going to run the ball a lot. They're going to do a lot of quarterback run stuff. Maybe wide receiver isn't as much of a priority now as it would be in that first scenario. So they need to know how much money they're spending at quarterback, so they know how much money they have to spend on the rest. And then you have stylistic stuff, and then you have, given who's a quarterback, now where does wide receiver fall in the rest of the team's priorities? And talk about offensive line too. If you got like Aaron Rodgers, maybe you're like, oh, we really got to find a way to keep this guy upright. Like we may be spending some money on offensive linemen. Maybe, with Justin Fields, he can run around. He'll be fine.
So Justin Fields, Mason McCormick, Aaron Rodgers. Let's see what Trey Smith wants on the open market.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's all. That's good stuff. I was just thinking about like the type of receiver. That is literally the only thing that came into my mind, and I was trying to sit like, who's a Russell Wilson receiver as opposed to a Justin Fields one. And honestly, like, not to say there's not
that stuff too, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you want to sign Tyler Lockett? A lot more if you have Russell Wilson a quarterback, right? Like, I mean, it's just like that's natural, right? Right. So yeah, I mean, there's some of that too, but I think the rest of that is more what Omar's talking about in terms of they need to know what's happening at quarterback before they can really start to make the plans for the rest of their offseason.
And we, had these conversations last year too, and not to say that these players are going to become available or anything. It's just, I was looking at the free agents and I was like, I don't know about this guy, like deciphering, but like on the trade market, obviously, like Cortland Sutton. If Russell Wilson was going to be around, DK Metcalf, I don't think it's going to happen, but if Russell Wilson was going to stick around, would make sense. If it's Justin Fields, maybe you think about trying to pair like one of his old Ohio State guys with him. I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to be available, but people have been talking about that. Somebody like that. That my mind went to the trade market before free agency, because going through there, I was like, I don't even know. We've talked about what we think of this wide receiver free agent class, and it's just like older guys coming off injury or not sure things. So,
yeah.
A lot of that within there. Just to the quarterback stuff is we've talked about taking Omar at face value, kind of having to let things play out. The fact that they continue to go forward thinking or saying this Justin Fields or Russell Wilson thing, do you truly believe that is the way that is? Like, it's between those two, they want one of those two back and leaning towards Justin Fields, or where are we at with that?
I feel the same way I felt a week ago, which was that they would that there are people in the Steelers organization that are not happy with either of those options, and that they are going to continue to comb through the NFL to see if there are better ones. But I also don't think that that's very realistic, and that there aren't any better ones, that they're just going to end up back with the same two. And in that case, they're going to sign Justin Fields. So I feel like Fields is like plan like 1B, and Wilson's like plan 2 or C or whatever you want to go with there. Where like, hey, if somebody comes available, somehow they find a way to, somebody wants to do something stupid or something crazy happens, they can find some kind of upgrade, they're going to do it. Otherwise, I think they're going to sign Justin Fields. In the strange scenario that they can't come to an agreement with Justin Fields, then they'll sign Russell Wilson.
Okay. All right, so not closing the door on Russell Wilson, obviously, because that was
I think that's important too. Like Omar was very down the middle, and he has to be down the middle. I mentioned this morning. He doesn't want to give away any of his leverage. He doesn't want one agent to know that he prefers his client, because then the price is going to go up. But I think there's like he could if you can go out there and say, we're going to let a player go see what the market is. We're not, like, lots of GMs over the last couple of days said, hey, like, there's a lot going on. We're not sure about it. Like, probably maybe we'll touch base later. There's lots of ways you could say it without putting down Russ if they were not interested. And the fact that they haven't tells me that maybe he's not their first priority, but I do think the Steelers will at least be open to the idea of Russell Wilson coming back.
Well, you mentioned, GMs will say that in terms of testing the market. Let's go to the running back position. A couple things to talk about here. Haven't closed the door on Naji Harris, similarly to Russell Wilson in return, but like we've talked about, us feeling like the likelihood of that isn't happening. Andrew Berry, Cleveland Browns, saying that he expects Nick Chubb to go to free agency and test the market there. And I believe it was last week we were talking about this. Jeff Hathaway, 93.7, was talking about the Steelers being interested in Nick Chubb should he hit the free agent market. We've talked about that. I mean, to me, I respect Nick Chubb for everything that he's been able to accomplish and coming back from massive injuries multiple times in his career. But to me, that is more of a name at this point than the production that he would offer the football team. I'm not sure where you are with that, but that I would just wanted to bring that up because that's a case where the GM is literally saying, yeah, he's going to test the market, as opposed to with Russell Wilson, where it's like even more so keeping the door open than that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of out on Chubb. I don't see the burst back. I mean, look, maybe he's different now than he was last season. A little bit farther removed from the injury. I guess that's a possibility, but I'm not liking what I saw on the field last year, and I would not be interested in signing up for more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an older back, and there's also a new back coming into the league. Steelers, one of the teams to be meeting with Ashton Jeanty. They obviously don't pick till 21. A lot of skepticism if he would even sniff the area where the Steelers pick at 21. You see him going as high as like 6th or 7th in this draft and some mock drafts. Where are we at with Ashton Jeanty? I know that we've talked about, actually, well, DB and I had a conversation more in depth about Ashton Jeanty. I know we briefly had a conversation about him, but like, if he gets to 21, is that something the Steelers should consider in your mind?
Well, I mean, first of all, he's not getting to 21, and he's not getting anywhere close to 21. Second of all, what
is the floor in your mind?
Oh, I don't know, like 10. I just, what did the Cowboys pick? 12.
Actually, that's what I had 12 as the floor. Yeah.
I mean, he's a top 5 player in the draft class. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, I have talked a lot about the positional value of running backs. I understand that it's not there for him. There is almost no chance that the Steelers are going to draft a better player than Ashton Jeanty. Like, there's just almost none. Andrew Filipponi from the Fan put out a poll today. What would you feel about the Steelers using their 21st pick on Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty? Here's how I think I need to like explain this. This would be like me putting out a poll saying like, how do you guys think I should feel if Jennifer Lawrence asked me out on a date? Like, I mean, like a thing that has like a 1% chance of even thinking about happening that would be so far above and beyond any plausible outcome for you that you should pretty much dismiss it as silly. If that happens, should you be happy about it? 66% of the people at Filipponi's.
I was saying, did you see the results? I just voted yes on this to see the results. And
thumbs down. They don't like it. I'm just look. We talked a lot about Naji. I mean, if you're like a very long time Steelers now viewer listener, I trashed the Naji Harris pick years ago. I understand the whole concept. I wrote a lot about it yesterday about the running back value. This guy's Saquon Barkley. He's different. It's a different piece of math.
That's the thing is like, not only is it not comparable in terms of the type of prospects that we're talking about between Ashton Jeanty and Naji Harris. I think a lot of people thought that the lesson to take away from the Naji Harris pick was to just never draft a running back in the first round, as opposed to the Steelers putting the horse before the cart really being the lesson to learn there and not doing that again.
The Steelers put the horse before the cart and they drafted a mule. That's basically what happened there. Okay. I get like, especially for this offensive scheme, right? Like he's a bad fit for their offense. Jeanty, oh my gosh. Perfect.
I don't know if I'm going to come back from the mule, calling Naji Harris a mule.
He's a big dude. He's sturdy. He's dependable.
I wasn't expecting it. That's
he's not a thoroughbred though, right? Ashton Jeanty's a thoroughbred.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of thoroughbreds, I would drop Myles Garrett into that bucket as well. Certainly generational talent. The Browns, Andrew Berry, I mentioned, talked about Nick Chubb hitting the open market. He doesn't seem as willing to let Myles Garrett get free of the Cleveland Browns organization. Said that their stance really has not changed on the Myles Garrett front. Although, if you really want to read into the words there, it really hasn't. Not like it hasn't completely, full stop. It really hasn't. So maybe there's a little bit of softening within those words there. But anyway, what is your take on this? Do you feel any differently than the first time when we had a conversation, the beginning of this month when Myles Garrett put his trade request out?
I just I don't know. I think I think Myles Garrett is dead set on leaving, and I think it's going to be hard for the Browns to recover from that. It's not impossible, but it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, like what?
Some of these are just a guy pissed off that is just saying stuff. Like Tyreek Hill was just a guy who was mad saying stuff, right? Like there was no substance to that. Mm-hmm. Myles Garrett thoughtfully crafted a message. Like the amount of time and thought that he put into that tells me that he's considered all the options here pretty thoroughly. He's put a lot of research into this and a lot of time into this, and he's done. And I don't know how you come back from that.
Well, if there's nothing that they can do contractually to satisfy him, like, what are we doing here? Because I know there's a lot of people that are like, if you make him the highest paid non-quarterback or whatever,
he's gonna
his stance will change.
No
but
matter who he plays for, he's going to be the highest paid non-quarterback and the highest paid edge rusher in NFL history.
Yeah.
And that's happening no matter what.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, like you said, I don't know what the path forward is here. It's hard for me sitting here right now to say that I see him continuing to be a Cleveland Brown, but I don't know. It's one of those things, I guess, until it happens, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, but I'm glad that's not my team dealing with this. And the last thing I want to talk about is another player just got a new GM in Jacksonville. And last year, if he didn't break his collarbone, Christian Kirk would have already been a Pittsburgh Steeler. Certainly seems like that was going to happen if he didn't break his collarbone. New GM, 34-year-old James Gladstone, the new GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, asked about Christian Kirk. Said they're happy with Christian where he stands right now. I wouldn't expect to be like, yeah, we're going to trade him. But what do we make of Christian Kirk? Anything that was said or anything make you feel differently about Christian Kirk being available?
Wait, if I send you a video, can we put it up here? Is that possible?
It might take me a second. So
I wasn't prepared for us going here, but now that we're going here, we need to go all the way here. Okay. Can I text it to you? Does that work?
Yeah. And then you're going to have to talk until I'm able to get it pulled up.
Well, I'm good at that. All right, I'm going to send you. This video is James Gladstone, who is the new Jacksonville Jaguars general manager, and Joe Smeltzer, who covers the Penn State for Nittany Sports Now, our partner site, is here with me in Indy. And I sent Joe out on a GM talking mission today while I was typing up all the Omar stuff, and he did a lot of did a lot of good stuff. Talked to Duke Tobin about the Bengals situation. Got some stuff about Chris Godwin. All kinds of good notes that I'm compiling from around the NFL. But he sends me back this video. Now, I had known the name James Gladstone that the Jaguars just hired. He had been with the Rams as some sort of director of strategy. It was like a sort of very non-typical place that you get a general manager hired from. So I thought that was interesting. He went to Westminster College, but apparently it's a Westminster College that's in Missouri. So I was like, wait, is this guy from Pittsburgh? Oh, no, never mind. So I was familiar with everything, but I can't say that I came across any videos of him or a picture of him that kind of went beyond the little graphic that I didn't pay any attention to. So when I got Joe's video that I've now sent to you, I'm like, who is this kid he's talking to?
Oh, just thought it was some random dude.
Because this guy, he is, you say he's 34?
34. He
looks like he's about 16.
Yeah, I would say, he looks even younger than he actually. Oh, I got it. So this is Jacksonville Jaguars GM, James Gladstone.
Catchers, Christian Kirk, way before you got here, obviously, but he had been linked to trade rumors before his injury. Is that something that's back on the table now?
No, I wouldn't say that. We're just starting the conversations about our own current roster across both scouting and coaching staff, as well as working in pro free agent related dialogue. So at this point in time, can say that we're happy to have Christian.
What's your favorite part?
I mean, like, okay, Joe is, I don't know, Joe's been out of college for 4 years or something like that. Like,
yeah,
he seems like the old man in the conversation. Like James Gladstone's very differential to his elders, including 27-year-old Joe Smeltzer or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when you listen to him talk, he does sound like an impressive dude, intelligent dude. I'm not the one to say whether or not he was qualified for the job, but obviously, he was
just shockingly young looking. Like,
yeah, shockingly young looking. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But in terms of Christian Kirk, you again, going back to Friday's episode, have the Steelers landing Christian Kirk in a trade. What do we make of this?
Kind of a blow for that, honestly. Again, you got to put the GM speak on. Is he really going to say, yeah, we're trading him? Screw that guy. No. But I think there's a way that you can answer the question that leaves it a little bit more open. You can say, look, I just got here. I'm still familiarizing myself with our own players. I haven't even really thought about those kind of plans yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you trade him next week. Like if it's really in his head that he wants to trade him, there's ways you can give yourself a bit more of an out than he did there, where he said, no, we like Christian. So I don't know. Kind of felt like, to me, that was a sign that maybe he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, like we're evaluating the entire roster, Christian included.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, right. I'm not closing any doors on anything at this point. Sure, there you go. Right, like.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, and the shame about it is, like, this dude's not even old enough to drink yet. So, like, none of the other GMs are going to be able to take him out for a drink and hopefully have a conversation.
You know what? While all the other reporters are hanging out in bars trying to get their little scoops from all the rest of the general managers, I'm just going to go to Baskin Robbins and get like a 45-minute exclusive, because that's where he's going to be hanging out.
There you go. Alan, anything else you feel like needs to be discussed on this episode?
There was a lot that happened today. I'm sure we'll get more of it as the week goes on. But no, I think we covered the hot spots.
Yeah, there's another position group that I absolutely want to talk about tomorrow, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to put that in the bank here to talk about. But as well, keep the questions and topics coming in the comments, because we're going to need those as we continue to work through the off season. But until tomorrow, Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. I've started posting some shorts of the morning rush on TikTok. So hoping those will catch on. Also been trying to post on Blue Sky a little bit more. Just trying to meet you all where you're at. So if you're in a different place, find me, message me, follow me. There you go. And hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform. This is a good week for YouTube usually. Usually we see, because we start posting these prospect videos and everybody wants a piece of those. So I already got like 300 views on the 2 Omar videos from this morning. So
there we go.
Should be a big week for the YouTube platform. So I'm hoping that those subscribers keep going, and thankful for each and every one of you all that listens to us every day.
What are we at? We are at 15,000 and Ziggy Hood currently on the YouTube channel. Love to see it.
Brenston Buckner, Super Bowl 30.
What number was LT Walton? Was 96 as well, correct?
Could have been. Wow, that's a pull.
I think he was 96. I should have said that one before Ziggy. He was. Yep. There we go. There we go. And if you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe over there, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok, because I was able to get TikTok back just a couple days ago. So I'm going to start posting clips from this show over on that platform as well. And then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.